Hi, welcome to Queen of the Ring, the podcast that wants to talk to you all about wrestling. My name is Alexa. Today I'm going to be bringing you part 2 of AJ Mendez's book, Crazy is My Superpower. Through part 1, we went through her early life all up until about her senior year of high school, when she started thinking about what she really wanted to do. We talked about her relationship with her parents and her siblings, and the ways that she comforted herself throughout childhood within the fandoms that she loved and were so dear to her, through anime and video games and obviously professional wrestling. She found a strength within herself, and throughout this episode today, we'll be talking about the ways in which she nurtured these qualities and realized how strong her mind can be for her, even as it's dealing with these mental illnesses that she just happened to have, because that's just kind of how some of us are built. And when I say some of us, I am in that category, I guess. I am mentally ill. But I mean, I'm taking care of it. Everything's fine. But, the way with which she easily talks about all of these things, it does encourage, I think, others to do the same and to watch out for the people that they love in their life. So, content warning for, talking about mental illness and the ways it can negatively affect your body and the ways that people can act out. And if you're not in a place to listen to something about that, completely understand. Take care of yourself and maybe something else. Like go watch 1997's Cinderella starring Brandy, which was my favorite film as a child. It'll put a smile on your face. We'll be picking up this book at chapter 6, where she says, quote, "New York City holds a special place in my heart. It's the first city I saw live wrestling at the legendary Madison Square Garden. I was just about to turn 17 and had already steadfastly believed I would be a pro wrestler one day. But actually witnessing the spectacle in person, experiencing the electricity in the arena, really sealed the deal for me," unquote. As AJ moved into her dorm in Greenwich Village for her first year at NYU, she was starting to feel like maybe this is where she belonged. Her mom told her that she packed up her things like she was never coming back, and AJ already had so much on her plate throughout her life that as she entered college and kind of realized that she was officially a full-on adult, but I don't think 18-year-olds are adults, honestly, still children. But she found herself lamenting that she never really got to have a childhood. She was mourning something that never got to be at all. She was holding a massive amount of guilt for leaving her parents. She said she was already planning on making trips back often enough to make sure that they had food in the house and they were paying their bills, but she felt really bad about leaving them. When her siblings left, they propelled themselves into their future without looking back. And she respected them for it, although she was jealous. Erica was getting a degree in education, and after Robbie served 2 tours in Iraq and Afghanistan, he was honorably discharged, but was left with severe PTSD. So her siblings were both really busy, and they didn't really have the time or the desire to go home. And with the guilt that continued to bubble up inside AJ, she would go home every single weekend, take 2 buses, a train, and walk to be there for their parents, while she also had to continue being there for herself and being there for school. Every time she went there, she would realize that slowly but surely her parents' apartment was falling into more and more disarray. After AJ had a school project that left her at school for a few weeks and she wasn't able to go check on them, when she went back to Jersey, she found her mom as a shell of her former self. She had ripped out some large chunks of her hair and said that she was just getting so nervous that she really couldn't help it. AJ said, quote, "I didn't understand what was happening. All I knew was that it felt as if my mother was slowly melting away." AJ told her dad that she thought her mom needed to talk to someone, a psychiatrist or something, because she was slowly deteriorating. She was nervous to confront him about it because she was very aware about the fact that I've mentioned that the Mendez family doesn't believe in psychiatry. He said to literally never bring it up again when she decided to, because he said, quote, "Your mother's not a crazy person." And in result, AJ started going back home even more often to take care of her mother. And, AJ is still attending school in NYU at this time, and her peers were in completely different worlds. She says that if she didn't show up to a party or to hang out or whatever, some of her friends would maybe be mad or annoyed, but she would just use some excuse because she didn't want to tell them that she was, quote, "too busy trying to keep my mother alive." She had no time to date anybody, obviously, and she said when guys would ask her out, she would say something nicely leading to no, but she asked the audience, like, what the fuck is she supposed to say to somebody in a date? Quote, "I spend my time reading, writing, and providing a 24-hour suicide hotline for my mother. And what do you do?" Unquote. As things got worse at home, her mom started not getting out of bed at all, and AJ said that she found her one day with bed sores all over her. And when she went back to school, she couldn't get this image out of her mind, and it would haunt her throughout the day, maybe, like flash into her brain. And these types of anxiety thoughts were kind of leading her to a place where she was succumbing to crying fits and anxiety attacks. She said she would dissociate in the shower and wake up in a little ball on the floor with water running down over her. She said, quote, "There was no way I was strong enough to save my mother on my own. But why did I always have to be strong? For once, I just wanted to fall apart and have someone else pick up my tiny pieces." That part made me very sad. Everybody deserves to have someone pick up their tiny pieces. AJ's insomnia started to turn back tenfold, and she stopped sleeping because of that and due to lack of time because she was just so busy throughout this period. As she was navigating college and her own self, she was confronted with many posters that were really popular in the early 2000s that said, "Don't jump." There had been a lot of students, sorry to laugh, it's just like, I'm uncomfortable, I get a little laugh in. There had been a lot of students who took their own lives at NYU, and the college and other colleges structurally changed to avoid these disasters. Like Vegas hotel rooms, like completely, you can't open them up. And on these posters, plastered everywhere, were the names of counselors someone could reach out to if they're struggling. And AJ, every time she saw them, would just think she wishes she could have her mom go see one of them, and it's just not possible. And she decided that maybe she could go for her mom and kind of relay this information that she received from a counselor to her. So she decided to go, and when she kept trying to insist to the counselor that this wasn't for her, it was for her mom, and she really just needed advice to pass on, the counselor kept doing what all counselors do and said, "Well, how is all of this affecting you?" And when she described what I've been telling you all about, he told her, quote, "These attacks aren't normal," he plainly put it. "I think you're experiencing depression. I would like to refer you to a psychiatrist." With everything from her parents before, this statement made her almost walk out. She said, quote, "This guy had known me for an hour's time and wanted to deem me crazy." But she said she kind of had to keep listening. Quote, "Depression is not something you can choose. It is a chemical imbalance, which can be sometimes hereditary. If your mother is indeed experiencing the symptoms, there is a chance you could be prone to them as well." The matter-of-fact way his voice lilted and the calm demeanor he possessed when he was delivering these facts made AJ realize just how outside of her control this all was. This isn't something she should be facing alone. Quote, "With certainty, I have decided my mother was experiencing some sort of mental illness. But if I would have taken the time, I could have noticed my reflection in my mother's weary eyes." Realizing the dark swallowing her up was sizing me up for its next meal felt simultaneously like a ton of bricks had been lifted off and laid on my shoulders. I finally had answers to questions I didn't even know I had. From the school counselor, she made her way to a psychiatrist and then a therapist. And while getting through these new environments were literally physically painful for her at first, as they are for so many people, she found that she actually enjoyed the therapy sessions. The homework she was receiving were things like write a letter to your past self, write a letter to your future daughter, a list of things you wish you could yell at your mother. And on the exterior of this journal, she wrote all of these secrets into. She hodgepodged on the outside, diary of an unfit mind. While she had been working on this part of herself, she got a call from her sister, and she said that their mother had overdosed. Their dad, Robert, had traveled back to Puerto Rico because his father was sick and he left Janet at home in New Jersey. When Robert's father ended up passing and the emotional effects were really intense for the whole family, AJ was the one who had to tell her mother. And apparently, AJ said her reaction was otherworldly. Around a week later, apparently while Erica was just going about her day, she got a call from a psychiatric hospital. Their mom had taken an almost lethal amount of sleeping medications, and when she realized she was overdosing, she called 911. When she was released from her involuntary stay, AJ said she came back with a much-needed diagnosis of bipolar disorder. AJ and Erica also found out that just before this, their mother had actually tried to seek help for herself. She went to a psychiatrist, but that psychiatrist misdiagnosed her with depression. Antidepressants, when incorrectly prescribed to someone with bipolar disorder, can have incredibly dangerous adverse effects. The doctors at the psychiatric hospital said that her attempt at suicide was to be blamed on this. AJ was shocked at how she and her mother both secretly sought out treatment at this time. AJ wondered, could she be bipolar too? But her mother's actions didn't feel like what she did, so she wrote it off for now. When her mother was home, AJ began the process of helping her file for disability to afford the medication that she needed to be taking. But unfortunately, because of that, Janet lost her legal ability to be deemed credible to pay off the loans AJ took out for school, and AJ couldn't go to NYU anymore. Looking for jobs, she became a cashier at her local supermarket. AJ really emphasizes how when you work in these jobs, like working with the public, being a cashier, a waiter, like if you work retail, customer service in general, you really see how people sometimes are in their worst moments. You can kind of tell how people value others by the way they treat someone in that position. I have worked those jobs my entire life, and I could not agree more. Remember what she said is her favorite part of her father that she carries with her always, is the way he treats others. as he once posited to her, quote, "Some days you're on the top, some days you're on the bottom. What's the fucking difference?" I think some gay listeners would know what the difference is. Just kidding. While she was a cashier, she was not taking the antidepressants that were prescribed to her by a psychiatrist. She was trying some homeopathic methods to overcome this, which I think is kind of common for a lot of people when they're starting this journey. She was finding it incredibly hard to get out of bed in the morning, and she lost interest in everything that she loved. She said, quote, "Even food lost its taste, as if every meal was made out of dry, plain oatmeal." At this job as a cashier, AJ's way of socialist paying it forward took form in her giving women who were obviously young mothers a way to afford their groceries, which everybody has a right to afford their fucking groceries, oh my God. But for some people that she knew were uncomfortable, nervous with how much they could afford, she would fake scan at least 1/3 of the items. She said, quote, "I tried to make what is normally the shameful process of brandishing food stamps a comfortable, normal experience. A few ladies actually filled out comment cards thanking me for treating them with respect and not making them feel as small as other cashiers had done." She even believed in some of the customers so hard that an old couple she thought to be adorable and feeble started scamming her. They started stealing stuff and then returning it for cash back. And after she was caught for helping these people, she got a really stern talking to that did not rub her the right way, so she quit. And because I say this a lot, but I find it to be very true, especially in these stories where I talk about a lot of intense things in people's life, we are so much more than the bad things that happen to us. Because at this time, AJ decided that she wanted to do what she had always wanted to do. She would become a professional wrestler. She was aware that many of the women in the industry were discovered by modeling scouts, bodybuilder circuits, but she felt confident that that would not be her way in. She discusses that she doesn't see herself as a marketably attractive person, but oh my God, AJ, you're gorgeous. We all know it. But still, she makes a point how she never valued herself in relation to her looks, which has been kind of a freeing experience for her throughout her life. And even though no one gently guided her into womanhood or adulthood, she, quote, "innately knew her value. I knew it because the world seemed to be denying it, and that just made me want to prove it even more. My value was not in my looks, but in my mind. I knew I was smart, funny, creative, and tough. What I brought to the world was going to be something in my mind's creation, not my body's." It's interesting that she sees her mind as her vehicle of success and makes me think back to her intense fandom within video games, anime, wrestling itself. All of these pieces that live within her help her shine in the ring eventually. All of this is the way she has shown and extended to herself comfort, strength, support, and reliance throughout her whole life. And now it can help her in her passion work. Passion work is exactly what it sounds like. It's a term in psychology where you're doing something because of how much you love it, kind of. And there's studies that measure people's work within this, especially within professional wrestling. Fuck me. Sorry, got a quick phone call. Back to the story. So her body will take her through her career that so essentializes it, while others sexualize it, infantilize it. Her connection to the psychological aspect may be nice in reflection of that. So with this realization of the career she always wanted being still a part of her desires, she had to find another job because wrestling school costs a lot of money. And after getting a secretarial job, she put down money for the school, nervous as fuck because, quote, Wrestling schools around the world can be often heartless scams meant to take money from clueless wannabes with lofty dreams. But the vacant warehouse in New Jersey that AJ walked up to did end up having a ring in the back, and she started her lessons. She was still living at home after having to leave school, and her mom wasn't too happy about her, quote, wasting money letting guys beat her up. So when she decided she had to leave home, she and Erica ended up moving in together. They struggled, quote, having to still help my parents with their bills and pay for training meant that we were stretched a little thin. Sure, we didn't have cable. I slept on the couch in the living room and we ate plain rice for every meal, but hell, we were surviving on our own. It seems every time she gets her footing underneath her, like enough to say a sentence like I just quoted, she finds her parents regressing. Quote, how could they implode so fast, unquote, she asks herself as she walks through the apartment that looks like it's been neglected for much longer than the month it's been since she was there last. Her parents had both lost weight, and the worry over them kind of continued to eat at AJ. Her brother Robbie had moved to Puerto Rico when their grandfather was sick, and after he knew what happened to their parents, they all kind of decided maybe it was best if Janet and Robert moved to Puerto Rico to live free in his dad's family home that they had lived in when they were all younger. AJ has such a feeling of responsibility for her parents that her feeling relieved they were leaving left her with severe sadness and guilt. She became more depressed than usual. Still not having taken the antidepressants she was prescribed all those months ago, she decided that she was going to start taking them regularly. At first, after taking them for a couple weeks, she started to feel strange, and she thought maybe it was normal to be a little off after starting a new medication. And this was until one day when she said she, quote, woke up completely and utterly shattered. She had spent the whole night crying, even through her sleep. She took her medication and woke up with a severe headache. Her body hurt all over. And she really needed some Advil, but she only had these painkillers from when she broke her foot a few months before this. After taking one of them, the next thing that she realized was that her sister Erica was speeding through lights as AJ was in the passenger seat, throwing up outside the window of the car. When she woke up a few days later, she was in the hospital, and they told her she had overdosed on a mix of antidepressants and painkillers. She honestly didn't know if she had tried to end her life. She just knew that, quote, in the weakest moment of my life, without emotion and without thinking, I tried to make the pain stop. It felt like a mechanical and rational decision. And I feel like I must say, when feeling that need, the best idea is to call someone to help you. I just feel like I should say that. Erica brought AJ home, and she acted shy and nervous to talk to her after seeing this. And the first thing that she kind of got to say to her was, you know, you're going to have to clean my car. The days after unraveled a truth to AJ that she was repeating the same steps her mother had taken. When her mom was misdiagnosed with depression while she was in a bipolar depressive state, the medication had a near-death reaction. And AJ knew at that time that she was also bipolar. Sometimes she would feel incredibly euphoric and wonder in these periods, quote, getting to experience being inside of a wrestling ring had given me a strength and confidence I had never known. Having a full-time job, living as a proper adult, made me feel like I was on a path to success. So why couldn't I sleep at night, unquote. She would have days she called her dark days when she would sleep but would be constantly fuzzy. She would practically drag herself around, not be able to eat, but even if she did, food tasted like nothing. Those highs and lows were not a part of her brain's own self-annihilation. It was something her mother has, and now she does. Going through the process of finding medication that works for you can be exhausting, depressing, and just genuinely shitty. But AJ advises, quote, if you stick through the highs and lows of trying to control your highs and lows, there is a light at the end of the tunnel. She says the process takes guts, takes a brave person to accept they need help and to go get it. It takes an even braver person to not feel shame in the process. She wants us all to know that we are worth saving and we are not alone. Because this mind that has tried to implode her in many different ways is also the same mind that holds all of these pieces of the world that she loves so much. And it is the mind she so relies on to get her inside of the business that she will be part of. In the next episode, we will be finishing up the book, getting into details of AJ's life within wrestling, and kind of afterwards updating her life these last few years.